Let's skip the survey and just open up the two Outsiders Ultimate Edition figures. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash straight out of WCW. I thought I came here for the NWO, but I guess I was mistaken. I don't have the older Elite figures of these guys anymore to compare them to, but there's not really going to be a comparison anyway, because these are Ultimate Edition. These have the facial printing, and those figures are like older releases before the facial printing. You can see them in my big WCW collection video if you want to kind of pop in between, but I will mention them when it's relevant to these figures. But let's get them open. They do come in this big Outsiders box that has the usual, ooh, the NWO graffitied this box, oh, they're out of control, wow. So if you're a real stickler for mint in box, you can't even open the display box to see them at all. Ouch, that's rough. But of course, out of the box, we can look at Kevin Nash here first. And of course, they have a little bio kind of thing on the back with some stats. And their little paragraph that cites Bash at the Beach 1996. We'll talk about that once we get them opened here. Picture on the back that will be relevant later too. I want to open up Kevin Nash first for that very reason. This is because I was very curious about the back of the jacket, and there it is, what was going to be the original NWO logo, you know, World Order with the O circle and the globe, is on the back of the jacket. So that's pretty cool. This is the entrance jacket, so I mean, it dates him quite a bit. It's very, very early NWO with that. But that's just going to be removable. You get the usual big red Outsiders singlet. Outsiders on the front and then down the leg, but of course kind of get out of line once you start moving stuff around. Big knee separating all the letters there. I thought something was kind of weird going on here. He's got like that drop down hip joint thing. I was like, what is going on? But be careful because these are just huge legs and there's just a small peg in there. Sometimes it gets kind of hung up or stuck weird. You don't want to snap his leg and blow his quad out. Still has the toe. Of course underneath here he's got the ultimate butterfly kind of joint with the shoulders, and then he has that weird off-white elbow pad instead of like a usual black one that you would get later. Got his arm tattoo underneath the pad. So this is very specific to that early NWO period because then we can see the head has very dark brown hair. Not like the lighter blonde we'd get to see later with Nash. So that older Elite figure is still pretty good for that look with the blonde hair, even though it doesn't have the facial printing. So I'm still kind of looking out for maybe a later Nash for that look. I didn't realize how dark this is going to be. But for the appearance of the face here, solid. Very much the likeness for him, and his other heads too. He's got a little bit angrier head here that looks pretty nice. Of course, you know my luck, every figure I get always has some weird mark somewhere. I can't even begin to stress about that because it just happens too much. And then a yelling head, of course, makes it look very big and long head with the mouth open, but still you can see the likeness in there, so if you like super dynamic poses, that's going to be pretty good, especially with the alternate hands. He's got the two sweet hands you can put into him for both hands, like that iconic WCW Revenge taunt, and of course the one he would do in real life. So just the alternate hands for the two sweet, and then just open. No fists for him. Both Hall and Nash coming with like the older WCW tag belt. It was kind of going to get phased out not long after there for that newer design. But a full like VAC metalized one, so kind of have these as the NWO tag belts and maybe put the newer belts on, you know, another team in your collection. Still pretty cool. It even has like the little end tip painted gold on both sides, so decent one to keep for teams that won this style. He's got the classic NWO shirt that would come just a little bit later maybe. That can kind of fast forward him in time period a little bit if you want. And then since he comes with another shirt, he's got the Outsiders shirt. I mean, you're getting an extra NWO shirt for maybe another figure or something. So these are pretty nice to get two claw shirts. And then since he doesn't have like removable arms, I guess, I mean, they probably do come out, but they have the old Elite Velcro style that kind of wraps around him to put on. I would say a thicker body, like thicker torso than the Elite one, I think, unless that's just, I'm just seeing the Ultimate one here and thinking that. But it seems like he has a more fitting, thicker, big body than that one. Adequately sized. But again, I base so much of my collection on the WCW Revenge and Nintendo 64 wrestling games at the time, that this look is like straight out of that game with, I think he had the darker hair there and then definitely this attire in that game. So nothing weird on Nash other than the older logo, just to be aware that that's the time period it's representing is very early NWO. I guess this wouldn't even be the match where Hogan joined the NWO. This would be like the pay-per-view after Hog Wild, where he had less weird off-white elbow pad. And then, of course, not long later, actually winning those tag belts and stuff, too. So Nash good, just be aware the head is like older Kevin Nash instead of like the later WCW with the blondish long hair. You know, the big sexy period. This is before. He's got darker hair because he was just Diesel like earlier in the year on WWF. So we will look at Scott Hall, which has the little bio stuff on the back too. Again, mentioning Bash at the Beach, even though I kind of feel like these attires are more like Hog Wild, the pay-per-view after that one. But maybe Hall, he wore this at the Bash at the Beach too, perhaps. We just don't know why he's here. So he actually has an extra set of hands. He's got the two sweet hands, but then he has his like special hands here we'll have to check out with a good pose. But the same two shirts and the belt, so we'll have to go over that. I'd say out of the box, this face is looking a little bit better. I was kind of looking at it thinking it wasn't quite that good. I mean, he's got his little hair bit going down to the vest. Just kind of the normal look there. I was going to say the smiling one looks a little better, maybe a little bit more likeness in there. To me, anyway, it kind of comes out a little more, so that's probably the one I was going to possibly have primarily in my collection with this guy. Quality chest hair painting on here. The Cheesemo is off the charts on this one. Even the vest, it has like the kind of belt strap detail on there. So that is pretty all out there for his Outsiders vest. Not NWO in the shorts, but Outsiders kind of written crazily on the side up to the back. The blood dripping down on the tights, the knee pads, the elbow pads even. Guess we just have one side with that. Boots all painted up, all the laces. So I would say for comparison, the Kevin Nash one to that old Elite figure is kind of like a different time period because the hair was so different. But the older Elite Scott Hall, I would say this one is just kind of superior looking. Might be a slightly different attire, but as far as face and everything else, this is going to be such a huge step up that I wouldn't really need the other one except unless you use one of these heads on them to soup up that older one. Speaking of heads, the third head is his ooh kind of like sarcastically not afraid of you at all like look, and then that's the special hands where he's kind of doing the gesture like ooh. That's a really good like specialty pose to put him in too with these parts. So toothpick accessory would be a little too small, but you get a little personality in there with the Ultimate Edition. He can do his little taunt like that. So I would definitely call this the ultimate Scott Hall like NWO figure. Probably covering a really broad time period for him all throughout WCW. Obviously had slightly different tights and stuff here and there. But for the most part, he covers all my bases for an NWO Scott Hall figure for my WCW collection. So they look awesome together. I was really like missing having Nash and Hall in my NWO because I got rid of the older Elites because they were just, I could tell that they just weren't going to hold up because they didn't even have the facial printing, the older ones. These just had so much stuff, I just wanted to jump on them. So it's good to have them back. It kind of fills out my NWO back to its old restoration. And thankfully there's a few extra members coming here and there. Such a big part of WCW having the NWO, so good to see, but then we needed, you know, super awesome versions of the founding members of the NWO here. So there's so much you can do with these with the shirts. Then if you're going to give them the older tag belts versus the newer ones or whatever you want to do. But not a lot of flaws here. I can't point out anything too major. This is about as good as you're going to get for that exact time period, like very early NWO on to before changes started happening with it. So this is the time period I specifically collect as like the Nintendo 64 games coming out around that time. That wrestling of WCW and WWF on the other channel getting the Attitude Era going. So if that's the time period you want to see, this is the place to be, is right here with me. So you might want to get subscribed right here.